Hi, I'm Carrie Galarza,
I'm Steve Ritter.
and we're the co authors of Elevating Your Kids' Growth, the Family Environmental Assessment Tool.
The Family Environmental Assessment Tool was designed with all families in mind. The tool is a simple way of measuring the subtle influences in kids' development so that parents and professionals alike can identify early chances to address problems and capture key growth opportunities. The Family Environmental Assessment Tool, and we'll refer to it by its acronym, FEAT, from now on, is based on the understanding that growth occurs in cycles where foundation strengths enable kids to connect effectively. And these connections provide avenues for growth, which in turn makes the kid more resilient. Resilience, of course, further strengthens the foundation.
At each stage of the foundation, connection, growth, resilience cycle, there are important environmental factors that are best managed when measured. As the cycle moves forward, advances in each stage are delivered to the next stage. Likewise, the consequences of missed opportunities are also delivered forward.
This tool is designed to raise awareness and prompt sensitive conversations. The tool does not provide the answers. The problem solving and interventions that arise from these conversations lead to solutions, either by activating existing family resources or by engaging a partnership with a professional. So, with this as an overview, let's discuss the historical origins of the FEAT tool.
Steve and I come from different paths, clinically speaking. I've served as an occupational therapist in schools, clinics, home health, and in private practice. Steve is a social worker who specializes in counseling and coaching individuals and organizations of all sizes to achieve optimal long term well being and functioning. But throughout our years of practice, we've discovered a common thread. The most successful outcomes always begin with an initial understanding of the holistic environmental landscape. Filling in this landscape begins with naming the obvious social and physical influences in a person's day to day life. Yet these are just the broad strokes. Each of us inhabits a complex and deeply personal internal and external environment. Our unique environments color every single one of our perceptions and interactions. Until we identify exactly what this looks like for each of our clients, we can't serve them fully. The same concept applies to all interpersonal relationships, including teacher student and parent child partnerships.
It's critical to establish the why of a child's behavior prior to tackling the what step of taking action or designing intervention. Strategies and modifications to improve on engagement and learning tend to present themselves when we simply remember to begin with an understanding of the fit between their external and their internal worlds. This assessment can be easily used by parents, families, caregivers, teachers, therapists, and educational teams. So, whether by yourself or with help, this tool has equal application for children of all ages and abilities. So, the four pillars of the FEAT tool are foundation, connection, growth, and resilience. And these four areas combine to form the FEAT circumplex, which reflects cycles of growth. And there are just a couple of elements we assess in each pillar. And now we're going to go through them together.
Foundation is the first pillar of the assessment. In this stage, we're looking at both medical and clinical history, and we're looking at family expectations. A child and family's medical priorities, along with their experiences with the clinical community, impact the base from which they operate. Medical needs have influence when it comes to availability for engagement, although this occurs in varying degrees. Sometimes medical factors are acting as an actual stopgap to engagement or connection and growth. And at other times, past relationships with healthcare providers are simply coloring the family's expectations in ways either good or bad. This also goes for the medical and clinical history pertaining to each member of the family, as it might relate to their perception of the current circumstances.
There may be times when there's no obvious medical or clinical history impacting engagement. In these situations, it's still important to understand how each family member's expectations align with one another and with other team members. What do they consider to be priorities? What exactly needs fixing? And what are their ideas about how this might happen? What would they want to tackle first if there were competing priorities? And which players would they like to see take an active role, and why? And what's the end goal?
And when we ask these questions, we're talking on a small scale. For example, maybe the child is shutting down emotionally during hour 2 of remote learning, or maybe they can't sit still for family dinner. Perhaps the objective is to find ways for siblings to play nicely together so the adults can get work done, or to help an adolescent to be able to manage school responsibilities and meet class deadlines with more independence. One of the benefits of the FEAT tool is that it's meant to be applied to discrete issues by shining a light on specific environmental factors that surround them. A strong and unified foundation paves the way for kids to be able to connect, which leads us to the next quadrant of the assessment, connection, which includes family dynamics and caregiver needs. Connection looks different for every family and each relationship. What matters most is that family members are understanding each other's needs when it comes to engagement. Healthy connection also means that they are doing their best to respect and make time and space for one another. The parent's physical and emotional needs are equally vital as the child's. When they go unaddressed or unmet, a parent is unable to fully show up for their child.
So, a stable foundation and strong interpersonal connections lead to more opportunities for the child to experience growth. This is what we are focusing on within the next and third pillar. The two elements of this growth quadrant are first, developmental stage, and second, enablers and obstacles. A child's developmental stage includes all of their cognitive, physical, social, emotional, and adaptive skills. And these skills influence the way in which they respond to receiving support and reacting to their surroundings. The fit between a child's developmental stage and the existence of environmental enablers and obstacles then dictates the caliber of the growth potential. Enablers and obstacles vary per household, per family, and in moment in time, but they include things like safety, technology, social media, sensory stimulation, routines, and schedules.
The last pillar of the assessment is resilience. Within this quadrant, we have support systems and child readiness. Support systems refer to the family's access to community resources, professional networks, friendships, and neighborhood relationships. Having adequate support available to them promotes the family's ability to flex and adapt to needs, both emotional and logistical. Child readiness is more narrow in scope and refers specifically to the child's individual ability to adapt to their experiences. We're talking about curiosity, perseverance, self-awareness, confidence, playfulness, and desire for engagement, traits we might refer to as disposition. This also includes the capacity for trust, an awareness of their emerging knowledge base, and their attitudes toward learning. We're looking at these elements with a mind not toward changing them, but to ensure that any interventions we try are specifically tailored to the child in a way that promotes a desire for participation.
So, just to review, foundation is the first pillar of the FEAT tool, and that includes medical and clinical history and family expectations. Next is connection, which includes family dynamics and caregiver needs. The third pillar is growth, which includes the child's developmental stage, as well as enablers and obstacles. And finally, we have resilience, which includes support systems and child readiness. And these four pillars come together to form the quadrants of the FEAT tools circumplex, which in its entirety represents a cycle of developmental progress. The assessment is unique in its ability to capture the cyclical nature of development, rather than charting it as a purely linear phenomenon. Each cycle forms a new foundation of strengths, enables the ability to connect, feeds growth, and empowers resilience. When one pillar is well established and secure, the next phase of the cycle becomes optimized. However, the opposite is also true. When gaps occur along the way, the missing pieces will impact the following phases. The ultimate goal of the FEAT tool is to identify some of the more subtle opportunities for repair so that each part of the cycle can be strengthened by the others. So, what do we do with this information when we're trying to solve a specific problem?
Each of the 8 criteria are assessed on their criteria sheets, from delayed to advanced, depending on the unique circumstances of the child and family. This is done by giving them a score along a 5-point scale. After all 8 domain assessment criteria are assigned a number, you're ready to fill in the circumplex, found in the worksheet section at the back of the booklet, by shading in the corresponding number within its pie wedge. Each segment of a wedge correlates with the number score. For example, a score of 1 is illustrated by shading the segment closest to the center of the circle, while a score of 5 is illustrated by shading in all segments of the wedge. Once completed, the circumplex allows a quick, impactful way to view growth and cyclical change from one assessment period to the next. By comparing 2 or more of them side by side, you can easily see where the child and family are functioning within the pillars of foundation, connection, growth, and resilience.
Assessing the impact of a kid's environment raises awareness, but doesn't address what to do next. Hopefully, the experience of using the FEAT tool has shined a light on current priority areas of attention with your child and, more importantly, raised some sensitive questions. So now what? Well, have the conversations prompted by looking at each environmental domain. The assessment merely tells us what we should pay attention to in that domain. And now we have to turn insight to action.
So, do you move forward by yourself or do you partner with professionals? Many of the environmental influences illuminate opportunities that can be addressed at home. If, for example, the child's academic performance has suffered lately, and the assessment reveals that there's been escalated conflict between the parents since a recent trauma, addressing the conflict will eventually have a positive impact on the child's school engagement. Sometimes, however, the issues uncovered by the assessment require expert resources. It takes a village. Engaging professional consultation when the path isn't clear can open avenues to problem solving. Small changes make big differences.
The FEAT tool is designed to help you choose the right actions for the right moments. Whether responding to a trauma or seizing an opportunity, developmental timing is key. The same family disruption will affect the 6-year-old, the 8-year-old, and the 11-year-old differently. Knowing what you're strengthening, foundation, connection, growth, or resilience, is important. There are always environmental influences in play. The cycle never ends. So always ask 3 questions. 1, where is my kid in the cycle, and what environmental domains are in play? 2, why is my kid at this stage, and how does this make his or her struggles make sense? And 3, based on our environmental assessment, what actions should we take, and when should we remeasure the big picture?
Steve and I are excited to publish the companion book to this tool later in 2021. The FEAT tool is intended to help readers evaluate the nuances of their environment and the impact on their kids. The upcoming book will focus on what to do next. We look forward to partnering with you as a resource in your home, school, and community.